Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to complete your two spheres and value scale. So first thing we're going to do is go ahead and grab the tape, and we're going to use that in order to outline our circles. You don't have to use the same set of tape or roll of tape as long as it's a circular object and it's not too small or not too large. Next thing we're going to do is go underneath it and actually lay out our value scale. Now to start this, I'm just going to start by making a line. Just like that. I'm actually going to redo it in mine, I believe. Oh, there we go. So I'm actually going to measure it out to be about 8 inches because each section is going to be an inch and I want about 8 sections. So here I am marking it, the 1 and the 8. And then I'm also going to go ahead and just put a little tick mark by each inch, and that's going to help me later on. Now I'm going to go to the side, and I want it to be about 1.5 inches. It could be a little bit bigger than that if you need it, the space, but about 1.5 inches is good. So on one side, I'm going to go ahead and lay it out, and here I am just marking it. You do not have to mark your paper. I just did it for example purposes. And then I'm going to go to the other side and do the same thing, about 1.5 inches. And then I'm going to go ahead, I think I remeasured. And this is a good example of using your eraser and not just the eraser that's on your pencil, because that one can leave some pretty nasty marks. Now I'm just going to go ahead and connect the bottom of my value scale. And the last step for this is going to be to just mark down those 1 inch marks. So I'm going back to everywhere I marked 1 inch and just drawing a straight line connecting it top to bottom. Now I'm going to have you do 2 different types of spheres. So this first one I'm marking, it's going to be no blending. So you're not going to do any sort of blending on this one sphere. And then on the next one you are going to do blending. Again, you do not have to label these. I'm just labeling them so that you can see the example. Now I'm drawing a little sun. You don't have to draw this, but what it kind of represents is the light source of the sphere. Every sphere has a light source. It's going to determine what part of your sphere is going to be bright, and obviously what part is going to have the shadow. So on this first one, you can see the sun is facing that way, therefore the under part is going to be nice and dark, where the top is going to be nice and light. So now what I'm doing is I'm starting with the darker sections. I can always go darker. It's easier to keep going darker than to go lighter, so it's better to start on the darker sections. And what I'm doing now is just starting at the bottom, adding these shadows. When I'm trying to get this darker color, I'm adding a little bit of pressure to my pencil, not too much, just enough to make it nice and dark. And I went ahead and sped it up for you guys. As I'm kind of moving towards those brighter sections of the sphere, I'm putting in a little less pressure. I'm trying to use the side of the pencil so that it's not a kind of a sharp line, and it's more of a blended kind of look to it without actually having to blend it. And as you see, I go back in and I start darkening those darks because I can always go back in and make them a little darker. It's just a little hard to make the lighter parts lighter. And that'll be our no blending sphere. And it's okay if that one looks a little scratchy. That's kind of what we want. It's not blended. We need to see that. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with my blended sphere, and I'm going to get my little blending tools ready, which I will show you in a second. So that's one of my blending tools. So I'm going to go ahead and start on the same exact approach that I took on the no blending sphere. The only difference this time is at one point I'm going to stop, I'm going to blend a little bit, and then I'm going to go back in, blend some more. So you see, same exact approach, dark parts, and then moving to the light. Now I'm going to go ahead and take this little cotton swab or cotton pad, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just use it and lightly press it all around my sphere. You'll notice that when you start blending, it just kind of mutes a lot of those tones, so we need to be careful of those light sections especially. So now it looks a little more two-dimensional, and we need it a little more three-dimensional. Now I'm switching to this other tool, which is great to use, especially on spheres, because you have a lot more control than you would with the cotton swab. So I'm able to get these kind of sharper edges, nicer lines, and really just more control. And now, same thing, going back in, just like I did with the other one, and making it a little bit darker because it did get muted out. And then same thing, going back in with that same tool and letting it blend out. I like to blend it out to make sure that it kind of just naturally flows into the rest of the sphere. We don't want to get any sharp lines, sharp edges, anything like that. So because I did blend a little too much and I would like this top part to be a little bit brighter, I went in with my eraser very carefully, and now I'm using this small little cotton swab tool to kind of blend out that small little area. Again, it's better to just naturally keep it lighter and then go darker, so just be careful of that. And then just some final cleanups to make it look nice. So the last step that you have to do on these spheres is, of course, add the shadow, because everything has a shadow when it's got a light shown on it. So here I am, again, blending that one out nice, just like that. And then we're going to go ahead and move on to the value scale. So on this, we're going to be moving from dark to light. Again, I am labeling it just so that you can see. If you do not want to label it, you do not have to. And then I'm going to start on the dark section first. Again, it's easier to go darker than it is to bring something lighter, especially when it comes to pencil. So this one I'm adding a lot of pressure. You'll see I go back over the same areas multiple times over and over again, just filling in the whole area. And then I'm going to go into this next one and do the same thing, except this time a little less pressure. I'm still going to go over the area, I believe, twice, but I'm adding a little less pressure to it. And I do blend it out just a little bit to get rid of those streaks. And then I just continue on that process. You can notice on that last one I went a little bit too similar, so I always go back into the previous one and then I can lighten it up. When we start getting to these lighter colors, I use barely any force with the pencil, and I'll even switch to my cotton swab and I'll just kind of blend it out nicely. And that's going to be our final project. So you're going to have from dark to light, just like that, 2 spheres. Just like that, one blended, one not blended. And the last step that you're going to do is just go ahead and add your name and class period to the bottom, and then it'll be ready. These will be turned in via pictures on your work in progress journals.